Thank you for staying with us. This is the AM show. My name is Benjamin Akakwa. I'm here with Bernice Abubedu Lanza. You will see her shortly, but as we hit our first big story, Ghana beyond aid and now Africa beyond aid. President Akufo-Addo is asking policymakers to reduce the dependence on the West. But how feasible is it in our current state with where we find our economies and with our debt to GDP ratios? Joining the conversation, Samson Asake Awengobet. He is Executive Secretary, Importers and Exporters Association of Ghana. Reverend Evans Tremensa is CEO of Agric Impact Ghana. Both of them join us for a conversation. We have others who will join as we go along. But let me say a very good morning to Bernice Abubedu Lanza. You left me alone here for too long.
I'm sorry about that.
So you'll have to pay for it with lunch. How about that? I'm putting you on the spot on live television.
You know you're sorted, always. Good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining the AM show. Like Benjamin mentioned, we are having a discussion this morning on Africa beyond aid. I know that you may have heard Ghana beyond aid so many times, but now the president believes that it's now time to take this beyond Ghana, make it a continental agenda. And so we'll also be taking your thoughts later in the program on what you make of this agenda. And maybe if you can just tell us how you view the personal agenda of Ghana as a country so far. So, like Benjamin mentioned, the president believes that we must put certain policies in place that will help us achieve that dependence we want as a people. So do stay with us and get onto our Facebook page as well as you get interactive with us, Benjamin.
All right, so let's check out a bit of what Mr. President has been saying. At the 22nd AABD conference, this was on May the 21st, which was just yesterday, being hosted by the University of Professional Studies, Accra, under the theme Sustainable Development Beyond Aid, the focus for Africa. The president proposed a Ghana beyond aid vision, urging the creation of a Ghana that is beyond dependence on the charity of others to cater for the needs of its people, but instead engages with other countries competitively through trade and investment. I recall in recent times what he said about sunflower oil, for example. You realize that on the back of what has happened between Ukraine and Russia, there are certain cereals that if we're producing here, we could have harnessed. You know, we get a chunk of our wheat from Russia as well. How has that affected us? And if we had other things that we could use for barter in a way, Morocco, for example, could be giving us some of these commodities while we exchange our sunflower oil or seeds or whatever with them. So those are some of the propositions. But as we explore them, I want us to do this quickly before we get into the studio and also go over Zoom. I am looking at page 5 and beyond of the Ghana Beyond Aid Charter and Strategy document from April 2019. It is always good to give perspective to it because this is from 2019. Where are we now? 2022. So let's just follow what was said on page 5 by Mr. President. This has been my clarion call to you Ghanaians since you accorded me the highest privilege of electing me as your leader. And it goes on, the committee, as Ghana Beyond Aid is concerned, was charged to develop the broad aspirations of Ghana Beyond Aid into a clear vision and strategy that can make Ghana prosperous and take it beyond aid in the shortest possible time. And B, identify the key changes and values, attitudes, and behavior that we Ghanaians have to either reinforce or change in order to ensure that we can effectively implement the strategy. These two things, have we made any inroads? I don't know what your thinking is, Bernice, but I'm sure when we get into the interactions, you will share. But Samson Asake Awengobet is on with us. Mr. Awengobet, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining.
A very good morning to you, yourself and to your colleagues in the studio. And tell Bernice that it's not only you that she's going to sort out. We equally wake up early morning to take our shower just to speak to Ghanaians, just to engage your good self. So not only Akako is sorted out, your panel as well. We are your children.
Bernice, this is an imposition.
Did you hear that? We are your children, indeed. Mr. Awengobet, I hear you. No worries about that.
No worries about that as well.
But you people need to wean yourselves off of us and go beyond aid. But let's continue.
That's a good one.
It should be a collective responsibility. It should be a collective responsibility. It shouldn't be just doing the talking and not doing the walking. I think this country, all what we've been doing is just to do the talking, just do the talking. The president's statement in 2019, just as your colleague has just reiterated, it was very elaborate, it was very flamboyant, but point is 2019 to where we are. Where is the policy?
Okay, so I will throw that back to you. Importers and exporters, you see it all when it comes to what we produce, what we put out there, and what we bring into the country. What is your perspective about this? Because since 2019, there's been a lot of talk. Now the president is saying, let's do this as Ghana, let's do this as Africa. Your reflection on that?
Thank you very much. I think this is a public policy that the president himself was leading the charter. And I must say that from 2019 to date, let's push it back to the presidency to find out whether who are those stakeholders that the government has been engaged. The committee that was supposed to set up, as we talk about what we were supposed to do, we read about 2 sentences to us this morning. Important Export Association will sit here as a key stakeholder, and I guess we have not had any discussion, be it from the ministry point of view or from the presidency's point of view, to say, okay, this is the identifiable groups. We are inviting them. We are not just coming out with a policy. We like them to be part and parcel of the policy. In this country, the problem that I have observed for a number of years I've been doing advocacy here is that it is when it's about implementation, that is where they need advocated, stakeholders to come in. But at the point of preparing, at the point of generating the policy, at the point of doing consultation, at the time that they will say, okay, this is a policy, all of us speak to this, and this is where we are going. They don't find stakeholders being engaged in that. Stakeholders only comes in when it's about implementation. Then when we try to point A, B, C, D, then they think that you have not been patriotic enough. I can tell you that this was elaborate policy, very flamboyant, as I said earlier, and Import Export Association cannot say we will not be part or we will not like the way the government is intended to take the country to. Of course, being on yourself self-sufficient and having surplus to look for other market, as he rightly said, we are now going to trade on African Continental Free Trade. The market is huge. The capital that we are going to raise there is huge. But point here is, with this policy, has the government taken the pain to engage stakeholders? As I sit here as the executive secretary, I have not, in the bid, had any discussion or engagement concerning what's the way forward. What can the stakeholders do to help government to ascertain government aspirations? So the challenge is not, and I'm quite sure, probably you will have other people from the academia. It is the same thing that applies on African Continental Free Trade. The last time we had the opportunity to engage the Secretary General, from my side and my colleagues from Ghana Union of Trade, the President of Gutta led us to pay a courtesy call to the Secretary General of State. There were certain things that we put before him, and the man sat down and said, oh, it's true. Sometimes they're the technical people. It is only the technical people that comes and discuss. But the people with practicality, the people on the ground, have been left out. I'm quite sure if you move from here, from where you sit, to even your village, I'm not talking about even my village that is far, to your village, and ask the farmers there, what is the opportunity available here? And ask the district there, what are they producing to feed the Continental Free Trade area? What is the authorities, sector like Ghana Export Promotion Authority? If you go to your district, I'm not quite sure you will see even their office there. Perhaps they will tell you go to the regional level. So you ask yourself, how many people, where are the people who are supposed to engage the people to actually understand that this is the policy direction, so that together we go, and not only the president alone.
Okay, just hold it there. Thanks for those initial thoughts. We've heard from Mr. President. He says he wants policymakers to develop policies that will make Africa prosperous, which reflects the document that I just read. He also says the reliance on foreign aid is impeding socio-economic development in the country. And we all agree. The question is, how do we actualize it? Again, I'll source the document. On page 6, it says the committee has responded to this challenge and it has developed Ghana Beyond Aid into a vision based on 5 broad goals. A wealthy, W. Inclusive, I. Sustainable, S. Empowered, E. And resilient Ghana, or in short, a wiser Ghana. Let me bring in the Guta president, Joseph Obeng. Are we on the right footing for a takeoff when it comes to creating this wealthy, inclusive, sustainable, empowered, and resilient Ghana?
Yeah, thank you very much. As far as we are always experiencing deficits in trade deficit, then definitely we are going to have it difficult to achieve all this that we have enumerated. So how do we do this? You know, in Africa, mostly we put politics ahead of economics. And normally, we have over-bloated expenditure. That has been the pain. Because if you have budget deficit, that's where you call in for foreign aid, isn't it? So normally, we source this foreign aid to service the shortfall in our budget. And so, what do we have to do? What is the solution? We have to look at why always our expenditure is over-bloated. The expenditure is over-bloated because we have corruption, and then we lack value for money,
right,
for our expenses. We do not prioritize our needs, and because of politics, we do so many things at a time. So our budget is over-bloated, and that we cannot finance our budget. And so we have to
just to hold it there. So we do so many things at a time. We pump in so many things because this party wants to come and do X, Y, Z when we could focus. That's what you mean.
Exactly. We put politics ahead of economics, and that's how it should be done. And then corruption is so much embedded in this. And so when we have an excessive deficit, then we do not have any alternative than to rely on this aid. If the aid do not come, then we have to go for commercial borrowing. That has been the bane. And so if you do not wean ourselves from this over-bloated expenditure, especially when we have not been able to increase productivity, that will ensure that we have positive trade balance or surplus. Then, of course, we will be reeling in abject poverty.
Very quickly,
the cycle goes on unabated.
Right. Very quickly before Bernice comes in, when you speak about aid, we have internal borrowing and external borrowing. And sometimes internal borrowing, looking at our own interest rates and the rest, it impacts us very negatively because it is also very high. On that tangent, what do you think we can do?
Yeah, everything dwells on expenditure. If you have an over-bloated expenditure, and you cannot service the expenditure, then you have to resort to borrowing. I hope you understand what I'm saying.
Right.
So, so if you do not manage prudently your expenditure, then if you are not able to wean yourself out of some of the unnecessary things like corruption and lack of value for money and the rest, and then you do not prioritize your needs, the things that will enhance on productivity, that will ensure that it will propel the economy. Then you do everything because of politics. You put so many things, and the expenditure is over-bloated. Then, of course, you have nothing else to do than to also borrow money, even commercial money, either outside or inward. When you do that, it means that you've put yourself in perpetual problem. And so the only way out is to be prudent in management of our expenditure, prioritizing what we need and enhancing on productivity, period. We have to be able to make sure that our productivity is increased. We have to manage so that we do not have continuous deficit in our budget, that we should be able to have a positive balance of trade at all times. In that case, then we are on the threshold of weaning ourselves from foreign aid.
All right. Mr. Obeng, just hold on there for me while I bring in Reverend Evans Tremensa, who is CEO of Agric Impact Ghana. Thank you for joining the program, sir. So we've been at this Ghana Beyond Aid since 2019. Now, the president wants to extend his vision to Africa. He thinks that we can do it. He does admit that we have done wrong things in the past and we must begin to right the wrongs. But for you as a CEO of an agribusiness, one of the
farmer as well.
Yeah, and the farmer as well. So one of the major pillars we were told that was going to help us, be self-reliant was to grow more, planting for food and jobs, so that what we are seeing with the Russia situation wouldn't have been if we were able to, mobilize and grow and eat our own. Would you say we have shown a good example? Because from Ghana Beyond Aid, you're going to Africa Beyond Aid. But at this point, do we even have anything to show for to say that we've shown the way as Ghana? It's possible for other African countries. You can focus on the agric sector if you want to.
Thank you very much. The first question I would like to bring out is that let's relate what he said to the realities on the ground. Do we have it? Are we producing our own food? Are we eating our own food? Are we importing or are we exporting more than we are importing? So let's correlate it with our context. What do we have? Are we growing more than we are importing? Okay, so if we are talking about Ghana Beyond Aid, I think that we need to also look at our context. Are we producing more? Are farmers happy on the ground? Are they producing? Do we have fertilizers enough to produce more maize, produce more soya bean? I do cassava. Right now, as I'm talking to you, if you look at the prices of diesel, against mechanization on farms, I mean, it's beyond our strength. So talking about Ghana Beyond Aid, okay, I don't think that it should only just be, in quotes, just pronouncement. There should be an intention approach to realizing that dream and that vision. And I think we should start it from our local level, our context, in growing our own food, in exporting our own food, in trying to reduce our importation demand, the way we import wheat. Why can't we infuse cassava flour into our wheat flour? There's a way we can do it, and we can cut a lot of the importation of wheat. And cassava flour is far better. Nigeria has done it with rice. What can we do with cassava, even rice and maize and corn? So Ghana Beyond Aid is a good vision of the president, but I think that we need to really get to the ground and get it, established. We should work it out on the ground so that we can all feel it. If we come to the local level, are producers producing the corn? Are they producing cassava? Are they producing what we are eating? Or we are importing more than even tomatoes? We import tomatoes almost about $200 million from Burkina. Onion, $199 million. So we need to tackle this first. If you're able to cut tomatoes from Burkina, if you're able to cut onion from Niger, if you're able to cut importation of poultry feed and all that, then we will now begin to say that we are inching there, we are getting there. But when our borrowing is even more, yes, the president of Guta said that our expenditure is even more, corruption has taken almost everything away. So we need to really have a strategy. We need to have I think that an intention approach to realizing this Ghana Beyond Aid.
But do you think, to the second leg of the question, have we shown a good example? Do we have the right to say that we had a vision, we have put a certain process in place, look at what we have achieved, so the rest of Africa can look to us? Do you think we've gotten to that point?
We are not there yet, but I think that it's a good start from the president saying that we need to do it. Once he has cast the vision, Okay, vision must be able to appropriate a lot of things, to make it a reality. So it's good that he has made that call, but going beyond the call, there should be an intention approach. There should be an action towards that to realizing it. So it's a good call. It's a call that is commendable, and then I think that we need to work towards it. It's not just only saying it, but after saying it, we need to get on the ground and make it happen.
Let me go back to the Grutter president, sir. So. Reverend Tremenso spoke about something, the importation from our neighboring countries, and something struck me. So we are looking at an Africa beyond aid. We don't live in isolation. There definitely will be trade, here and there between ourselves as Africans and all that. How do we build a stronger network system between industries in neighboring African countries, and the AfTA comes to mind, like the EU has done, very strong, very resilient. How do we embed the concept of networking into this Africa Beyond Aid vision and make sure it works for us? Because like I said, even though we want a Ghana Beyond Aid, we cannot live in isolation, from the rest of the world. So how do we go about that? Africa coming together to say, let's achieve this together instead of everybody sitting in their, little small corner doing what they want to do.
That's why there's introduction of the continental free trade for the same reason that you are asking this question. But you see here also, you see that they always say that we do intra-trade in Africa of only 15%. And why is it so? It is so because the people of Africa do not consume raw materials, but that we consume finished products. And that's why we have to ensure that we have a lot more value addition to our raw materials. The continental free trade, if it will be a success, then we have to industrialize. We have to make sure that we produce a lot more than what we are always importing. And that is the pain. That has been the pain. But the people of Africa are able to source these needs, the things that is needed for our consumption, not from Africa, but from somewhere else. It is difficult to get these needs from other member countries like Nigeria, Togo, and all that. Anything that we source from these corridors mostly are also imported. So what we have to do is what we have started in Ghana, the 1D, 1F. If we can fast track some of these things, and especially when we concentrate on the areas that we have comparative advantage, then of course, countries will be a hub of those things that they have advantages, they have cost-effective and efficient production, and then we will rely on ourselves, even within a continent. In that case, we will be able to enrich ourselves. But what I would say to this aid and all that, most of us in Africa are very political than economics. So the earlier we depart from that concept and that we become more economic than being political, the better. Because lazy economies cannot have a luxurious expenditure. We always want to have a luxury expenditure where we have a lazy economies. And so we have to be able to manage our expenditure, prioritize our needs. In this case, we are thinking about industrialization. So if all our focus will be on adding value to our raw materials, then it is a good priority for us so that in future we'll be able to add value to a lot more of our produce to enhance on our productivity. And that's the only sure way for success. And that will make us rich where we will not depend on other countries. So we are also very proactive, as lately we've been saying. Yesterday at the forum, I said that it's very worrying that the little things that we could have done that to sell in Africa is all being given away to China. They are again doing Gary, that we have it in abundance here. Yesterday, the Barbados team that I met said that they import shea butter from China, where we send these products to China. How are we able to also identify markets for some of these areas that we have in abundance?
Mr. Dr. Beng, sorry to interject, but bringing the China example, there are those who say that it's cheaper to process the raw material into a finished product when I take it to China. And so people even go, take the raw material there, because I doubt, as for cassava, I know that they've tried to, but I doubt they have shea trees there. So definitely there is the movement of the raw material from here to China for it to be processed and brought back. Is the environment here conducive enough for businesses to say, look, let's add some quality to the raw materials we have and sell to our own people? Because I speak to business people who tell me, Benis, I can get this per unit 50 pesos when I go to China, but I won't get the same thing here in Ghana.
Yeah. Sometimes it's the lack of focus. And that's why I always say that we have to dwell on the areas that we have comparative advantage.
Okay.
Nobody can tell me processing gari here is far expensive than processing gari in China. Never true. Nobody can tell me that when we grow our cocoa here and we add some value to it, it will be more expensive because we have the abundance of the raw material itself, which is a very significant component of production itself. That's the raw material. So the addition is what? Is it machinery? The same machinery cost is the same universally. Whatever machine that is applied in China, the cost is the same. But your advantage is your raw material. So where you have your abundance in raw material and you cannot add the value to it, then you are being lazy.
Right.
And that's what we've been doing, and that's what we are noted for. Nobody can convince me that production of gari that our mothers do in Volta region, and that Ashanti region, Eastern region, that we have done in abundance, that on the roadside we see, is being overtaken by China. We can't take it. Most times, we do this in abundance, and our people are even able to produce it in abundance by lack of markets. Our trade at the chains are not finding market for some of these products that we have.
Right. So I think I think it is pretty clear the tangent you're pointing to, because there are so many things we could do to stabilize our economy and become self-sufficient on many fronts, but we are not doing that. But just hold for me, Dr. Beng. Let me also rope in economist, senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School, Dr. Patrick Isuming. Doc, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Good morning to viewers and good morning to my fellow panelists.
Right. So we have so many things to digest. Other countries have plans, even on the continent. We'll get to that shortly. But since 2019, we've been talking about a Ghana beyond aid. And when you talk about these things, you would want to set an example before you externalize it, internalize it. I'm looking at the angle of our regional bodies. Yes, we have the AFTA. But even as we have it, we have had the South African Development Community, that is the SADC, the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa, ECOWAS as we know it, the Economic Community of Central African States, the AMU, that is the Arab Maghreb Union, the Intergovernmental Authority for Development. All of these exist on the continent. But when it comes to integrated development, as proposed by the ECOWAS chair, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, is it feasible, owing to what you see from the regional bodies and even with the AFTA in Ghana, the Secretariat in Ghana? Is it feasible?
In paper, it's definitely feasible.
On paper?
Yes. I don't think that, having the various regional bodies should necessarily work against having a more integrated Africa in terms of trade and then investment. But because sometimes if, as an ECOWAS sub-region, we were highly integrated and we have institutionalized a lot of the things we do and a lot of our policies. And then all the other subgroups have done that.
Right.
It should have been it should have made the overall integration of the continent much easier. So in principle, that shouldn't be. But what we do see is that we have some of the sub-regional groups are way ahead than others. I think in terms of the level of integration,
Right.
In terms of the level of cooperation among them. And because of that, I think at the moment we haven't really worked well in terms of trying to harmonize what the different regional groups have done. And it looks like the AFCTA is going to not take that approach. It looks like we are just going to start to broaden up as a whole together. But there's no reason why the regional groups should be an impediment.
All right. So we look at the 15% or so of intra-trade, because a lot of our trade is external. We are trading with China, with Ukraine, with Russia, and all of that. Internally, I mean, you look at even ECOWAS and the 15 or so countries in there. Integration, even movement, has not been exactly what we would have wanted to see. But again, on that same front, when we talk about going beyond aid, there are so many elements to consider. What are some of those that you see that we are not getting right as of now that we really ought to tackle? Because if intra-trade is so limited, can we get it? How much should we advance it before we can say that, look, we're actually going to take advantage of what we have on the continent?
I would say the biggest constraint will be leadership. You have to have a leadership with vision and with a solid plan that is committed to implementing and enforcing the plan. So even though you might have setbacks at some point, you stay the course, and then the plan should be such that it should have buy-in of not just government leaders, it should have buy-in of businesses, and it should have buy-in of the ordinary citizens. It appears that most of the things that happen, it happens at the top, and then it appears that the leaders...
About the buying of business and the citizens as well. So when it comes to the issue of importation, is demand-driven. So it appears a lot of Ghanaians have developed an appetite or a taste for foreign goods, unfortunately. And so I remember during the COVID era, Benjamin, when the president was speaking about eating local food, you realized that even on social media, there were, I beg your pardon, there were people who came out to say, I grow local rice, buy from me. And it appeared that it was catching on.
There was that drive, right?
But it's died down now.
Look at poultry. Poultry. We import over $300 million of that. Rice. Look at what the Nigerians are doing locally. So very solid point.
Yeah. So Doc, do you think on that score we have done well? Because we speak about Ghana, Africa Beyond Aid at the policy level. But getting to the people who drive the markets, the consumers themselves, are we doing well to encourage the people to maybe build a taste for local goods? Because there are people who tell you that, look, I won't take your local products because when I put it on the stalls in my shop, they will go for the foreign ones, unfortunately, even though they are sometimes more expensive.
It is a multifaceted thing to address. I think I will still start with leadership and what the leadership is doing. You are right that because of our exposure, because of how our economy has been running for the last 40, 30 years, we've always allowed unfettered access for imports of all kinds of goods. Meaning that it will be cheaper to process gari in China than in Ghana. Even the things that are cheaper in China, they didn't arrive there in one day. It's because
it took quite a while. Right.
The Chinese government made a deliberate policy that we want to encourage this. So when they start, they'll be producing at higher cost. But because they have a plan that over time, if we guarantee them a market, they are going to produce more and produce more efficiently and costs will come down, they persisted. And I think that is the part that our government have not done well, where, we want to buy seats for parliament, and we say, let's go to China. It's easier for the government to say, when we are doing public procurement, we are going to use that one to support local businesses than insisting that ordinary people, without showing any leadership, without the demonstration effect. Imagine how Ghanaians will see it if they saw that the president and his leaders are driving Kantanka. It's not just guaranteeing them a market, it's also a demonstration effect, showing the way that, look, even the president is driving this, the president believes in this. It doesn't mean that at the moment it's perfect, but with time, when we give them that market and we allow them to produce for a long time, obviously they will improve. While we are doing that, we have to give them basic targets and make sure that they are meeting standards progressively. When we do all of this, over time, we will get there. But at the moment, I think that for me, the biggest problem is that we are not even using the public procurement to support that angle. And that is a major problem.
And you took the wind out of my sail when you brought in Kantanka. I was just about to bring it, mention that the Toyota family and Toyota, and decades ago, they were called, coffins on the streets. Look at them today. And that is what we're failing to do as a country. But I want us to take a quick look before we come back into the studio at our grants, because even as we look at our debt system or structure, we also have the grants we've been getting over time. So we're going to look at what we've got since 2013 all the way to 2021. And you can see it on your screens, grants received by Ghana since 2013. You would realize that it's risen, and these are in billions of Ghana cedis. So that's 739 million in 2013, 814 million in 2014. Then in 2015, look at the spike, over 2.69 billion Ghana cedis. It fell in 2016 electoral year, 1.14 billion. And since then, it's been in the one figures, apart from 2019, where it took a dip of right below 1 billion. What would you say, Doc, has been the impact of grants? Are we using them as we ought to? Because this is fundamentally different from contracting loans, isn't it?
Yes, it's difficult to keep track of exactly how we have used these grants because, some of the grants, they come in the pool and then we share it. So it's very difficult to keep track of, that this grant has done specific things, except cases where the grants are tied to specific things that maybe they'll say we are giving you a grant to build COVID-19 rehabilitation center. Those ones are pretty straightforward to do. But the funds that come into to support the budget, the broader pool, then it gets messed up with everything else. And then it's very difficult for you to keep track of what has happened.
All right, Doc, let me come to our guest in the studio, Reverend Evan Stremmansa, who is a farmer himself. And it brings me back to the issue of what the consumer wants. So for you as a farmer, I'm sure that you may have, heard some of these things about why people would prefer foreign products over local ones. What have you determined as you engage consumers?
I think that consumers are very complicated, but they are complicated because of the taste that we have developed over the years. I still believe that we have every opportunity to make a difference in our agriculture sector. The reason is that we like the Gutta president said, we have to have a strategy of increasing our productivity. And when we have done that, because we have the comparative advantage of production, okay, if we're able to do that, then we go beyond that to add value to it.
I was just going to ask that. Have you thought about, because we just had the Gary example, you produce cassava, you farm cassava. Have you ever considered adding value to it, packaging it, and what's the cost in there for you?
is a whole value chain. All right, we have to start from production, then we go to processing, go to distribution, marketing, design, and etc. But I think that what we have to do is that we should the leadership, the policymakers should have an approach to making our agri sector vibrant. And personally, I don't see it. You know, the reason is that the importation is too much. We are giving so much out. And the more you are importing, what is happening is that you are shrinking your economy. You are giving more jobs to that country. You are giving more dollars to them, all right? And you are also destroying your local farming base. And in that sense, farmers will be discouraged. For example, if I'm producing cassava, okay, and I have a demand for Gary, to supply Gary, definitely the urge to go in for processing will be there. Banks, government could do some kind of soft loan and create the enabling environment for me to be able to secure funding to go into processing of the Gary. But I mean, here is the case. I have the cassava, over 500 acre farm. I produce the cassava, and here's the case. If you don't have the buyer to come and take it, then suddenly within 24 hours, all the cassava will get rotting. So there must be a strategy. I want to see that if you are saying government beyond aid, there should be Ghana beyond aid. The Ghana beyond aid vision must come with a very strong approach to making it happen. We must be able to work it to its logical conclusion. Okay, so there must be a production, we must increase it. There must be processing, there must be distribution, there must be marketing. We must create effective demand for market. As we create effective demand for market, then everybody will be interested in producing. But if I produce and I have nobody to take it, then it means that, first of all, if it's better I didn't even produce. You know, so I believe that we need to add value to everything we are producing. And if we're able to do that, I'm sure that we can be able to have this economic transformation very well on the ground. I don't believe that we should just say it and leave it. We have to have a strong work ethic, and government must have a very strong policy direction towards it. I also believe that politics is taking too much of what Ghanaians can do. We need to sometimes relax on the politics and look beyond the politics and see ourselves as nation builders, that we are here to build the nation together for our children, for our children's children, and all of us must get involved. If we do everything partisan, MPP, NDC, and we are trying to sabotage each other, that what will happen is that at the end of the day, our children will suffer. So we need to go beyond politics to making sure that we are getting our structures and our institutional systems very well, on the ground. For instance, right now I'm talking to you, okay, some of the extension officers across board don't even have logistics. One extension officer is to almost about 2,000 farmers. How can one extension officer go around 2,000 farms?
In a country where agriculture is our backbone.
It's our backbone.
One of our economic
backbone. In a country where we are saying that we want to do Ghana beyond aid, and we have one extension officer to about 1,700 to about 2,000 farmers. It's impossible. So we need to have a very overhauling of our institutional structures in terms of agric. Even now, the agric ministry at the district level, the agric is under the district assemblies. So when fund comes in, the DCE or the MCE must authorize it before they can have the money to move in. And for me, I think that is a very strong constraint to making it effective on the ground. So these are some of the things that we have to look at. So I think that we have a lot of things, we have a lot of issues going on. If we really want to do Ghana beyond aid, policy makers must be effective in making sure that their policies really run to its logical conclusion. And until we're able to do that, we will be speaking about it, we'll be talking about it, but we have effect on the ground.
I get a sense that it should be Ghana beyond partisan politics, and when we succeed at that, then we can achieve Ghana beyond
and you just hit the nail on the head. Because you know what happens all the time, we talk about it on the show. As a student of politics, they would tell you that every political party's ambition is to secure power and then propagate its agenda based on what the people are fed into. But you look at our political party system, why we keep flip-flopping in this balance, pendulating, is because the NDC comes and this is my agenda. The MPP comes, this is my... First of all, we don't have a focus nationally. We have it on paper. We have things, and I'll get into what other countries are doing in terms of development plans. Even China, even where it is and what it's rolling out. And we don't seem to get it right because while you can have, typical example, our road network. So many roads have been on the drawing board, on the table. We come, we asphalt a bit. This one does this. There are delays. This one says the contract was bad and this and that. Everything is eroded. We start again. There are roads we've been constructing since the 90s. And that is where the problem is. Again, we come and there are initiatives in education and health, in this and that. We don't want to complete them. We want to start our own. It is an illogical, vicious cycle that we've started.
All because,
and I totally agree.
All because we don't want someone to take the credit for something. So, Tre started it, so if I complete it, then there's a tussle over who did it, you know.
Do you know, in work ethic, one of the best things, one of the most powerful things is giving your best and not caring who gets the credit. And someday, I pray that our political parties will be able
get
to
to that point.
But let me bring in Samson Asake Awengobit very quickly. So, Mr. President has also been saying on the same, a beat. He says, investors, entrepreneurs, you are the ones he's counting on, or we are counting on, to spearhead growth and development in West Africa, especially. Are you ready for that charge? Are you ready for that challenge? And what are the impediments?
Well, thank you very much. I think it is not a bad call. It's a call in the right direction that His Excellency the President is asking. But point is, His Excellency the President, even though just at the backyard of his house or at the backyard of his country, we've seen how we are using politics to raid or to run down our own entrepreneurs. So which entrepreneurs is he talking about? We cannot go anywhere. The entrepreneurs we are having are Ghanaians first. We cannot simply pretend to use politics to run down a Ghanaian entrepreneur, thinking that he is an NDC or an MPP person. So we have to protect, we have to get a law to protect our own entrepreneurs. You remember that of your colleague media person whose factory was pulled down at the trade fair just because they wanted to develop it. Up to date, is a trade fair being developed. We have seen how some of our financial institutions, which were doing very well, that was just closed down, and then they asked importers to pay the percentage to help government to recover what you call the financial service cleaning. Then you ask yourself, are they not the entrepreneurs? Other countries are working hard, are investing to protect our entrepreneurs and help them to grow. In this part of our world, we use politics to crash down our entrepreneurs. So I don't know which one he's talking about, so I am confused as an advocate. The other aspect I want to add, I heard my very good friend, colleague, good morning to him, Dr. Obe, talked about organic processing narratives. Yes, what our mother used to produce is just to feed a nuclear family. But we are talking a commercialized family, a commercialized production that will have excess to eat, more to eat, and have surplus for export. And so when you listen to the Reverend Mensah, he's talking about cost of even production. The local production alone is so expensive. And so until we look all this including already market takeoff, because if you look at our rice producers, you go and ask them, where is the rice farm? Where do we have the mills, the mills that they are used to mill the rice? In other jurisdictions, the processing plant is set up close to the rice.
We seem to be losing Samson Asake Awengobit there, but interesting that he brings that in because that was the agenda with a place like Komenda. And again, interestingly, because you produce in the community, and that's the most sensible thing to do. And that was also the idea behind 1D, 1F.
1D, 1F, yes.
But again, policy implementation, always the problem in this step. But Bernice, let me just bring in, since Samson's connection is bad, let me just bring in Dr. Obeng as we pursue the conversation. Dr. Obeng, so looking at all that we've digested so far, I'm thinking of how we can flip the script when it comes, for example, to the benefits from our natural resources, from gold and the others, in terms of the royalties and other benefits from these resources. What is your take on that? Because that is also one area where we are bleeding, losing so many resources to these Western companies that, yes, they are helping us, but since when? I mean, look at when we discovered oil. What have we done just within the early 2000s to ensure that we have the infrastructure to take over and do our own thing? It appears we've lost Dr. Obeng. So let me just come to Dr. Esuming quickly. So I am looking at a document. I don't want to reference it directly, but we have a plan, so to speak, and we've had Vision 2020 and all of that. When you look at other countries, let me just walk you through a list for those watching and Dr. Esuming. Algeria has a national vision for 2030. Bahamas, Vision 2040. Kenya, Vision 2030. Malaysia, a one-time compatriot of Ghana's, Vision 2020. New Zealand, they have a 30-year infrastructure plan. Norway has same, up to 2060. Qatar, where the World Cup will be held, 2030. Saudi Arabia, 2030. South Africa, 2030. South Korea, 2030. Uganda, 2040. Do you see that planning when it comes to development, especially for a country, again, sourcing the same document I'm looking at, which is hoping by 2057 to have a GDP of $3.4 trillion? When you look at everything, are we on the right course?
No, we are not. I think the problem is, as my colleagues have pointed out, is a lack of consensus on something that we all as Ghanaians believe in, that we are going to fight for, rather than this party wants this and this party wants that. You recall that the NDPC came up with a 30-year national development plan. Obviously, the current government has different ideas, and their view is that 30 years is too long, and essentially they shelve that. But I think that is where the problem is. We have to have a Ghana strategy, not a party strategy. If we had something that all Ghanaians believed in, so regardless of who is in power, the approach to carrying out will be what is different. But where we are trying to go, everybody buys in that, everybody believes in that. You can't have a situation where somebody comes and says, I don't believe in this, and we completely shelve that. And it's also part of the reason why we have so many uncompleted and abandoned projects going on around.
And even judgment debts.
And the judgment that comes with it. So I think it has to have something that is a consensus, a point where, it is genuinely something that both sides come to agree. And sometimes it's something that maybe something like Ghanaians are the ones who have to demand of them.
But these leaders are Ghanaian. So are you suggesting then that we should find a way, maybe civil society, leadership, the National Peace Council, among others, come together and sort of force the two major political parties, because like it or not, they are the ones who in the Fourth Republic have ruled us, MPP and NDC, and tell them, we as a people, these are our aspirations. No matter your political party, whatever agenda, we want you to feed into this plan over the next 20 years, for example. Is that what we ought to do? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. We need something that is not necessarily driven by party agenda, but a Ghana agenda. That the only thing that the parties have is, okay, this is the goal, this is what we have to do, these are the targets. Maybe there's some variation in terms of the approach, where we want to emphasize first and all, but we know that whoever is in power, this is where we are headed, and this is what we are going to do.
Okay. So,
And then
right.
stop too much emphasis on procurement. I think there's too much. We do too many things that are simply driven by procurement. That we need to procure things. Whether they are in our long-term objective or they are going to fulfill our long-term goal or not. So I think that aspect has to stop.
Okay, and I was just about to say that we really shouldn't be doing this because that is part of the role of the NDPC. But
Exactly.
it simply hasn't worked because when you look at that institution itself, it has also been, pardon my statement, politicized.
Actually going to ask you whether we do even have
we have a national. We do, but unfortunately, like you said,
They are doing a lot of work actually, but I see
where?
politics.
The work is where?
No, I am privy
Where's
to
the work?
certain pieces of information, but
where is the work?
It's the implementation, and that's where the politics comes.
Exactly.
all right. Yeah. So, Doc, I mean, in wrapping up our conversation, we'll have to wrap up quickly. I'll come back to take Reverend Tremence's concluding thoughts. But so the president says, look, let's brace ourselves for the challenge. Let's start building the future that we want. Clearly, it's a process, right? And we wouldn't see this, with a snap of a finger or in the twinkling of an eye. There are those who also propound the theory of dependence and argue that the global system has been structured in such a way that it will be very difficult to break off that cycle that has happened for so long. And so there are the world powers who would also want us to remain where we are because there's a certain benefit to them. So this is a real fight. Assuming we have gotten it right from the start and we've put in the right processes, how long do you think, Doc, it will take us before we start seeing the impact of our actions on the ground?
That is a difficult question to answer. I think it's obviously, it depends on the specific things that we are doing. But, I think the premise of your question is that it's not that, people are, our other partners are the ones who will do the hard work for us. It is we ourselves. And we shouldn't think that this is going to be a walk in the park. The global world out there is pretty competitive, and every country is trying to fight and do the best for their citizens. So it is completely on us how what plans we have, where we want to go, and exactly how we are going to go about it. But generally, it is a series of plans. It is not one plan that will deliver it all. So the one plan will say, by the end of this plan, this is where we will be. That will not be the do it all, feel it all, and then that's not the end goal. All we need to do is that, okay, if we do a series of 5-year development plans or 10-year development plans, at the end of these 10 years, this is where we will be. Then when that process is ended, based on what we'll be able to achieve and what we couldn't achieve, we start another process where you say, okay, over the next 10 years, given what we have done, these are the targets, and this is where we want to go. So you might have a plan that says, by the end of this plan, we have to be full sufficient. When you are done with that, you might have another plan that says, by the end of this plan, we have to be producing 90% of what you consume. Or, you have to be replacing our imports. Then you have another plan that says, we are going to be self-sufficient in energy. So it is not, you won't have one plan that will help you to achieve everything. That wouldn't really happen.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Dr. Patrick Osumin is a senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. So I'm wrapping up with our guest in studio, CEO of Agric Impact Ghana, Reverend Evans Tremense. So we've had a lot of discussions. So we do this occasionally, anytime the issue of Ghana Beyond Aid comes to the fore. For you, you've spoken about what you'd like to see on the ground. But for you, moving from what the president has said and where we are currently as a country, what will the next realistic step, I want you to be very specific, the next realistic step be in achieving a Ghana Beyond Aid?
Number one, we need to seek self-sufficiency and reliance as an all-round strategy in the long term by producing what we eat, processing it, and distributing it, creating the market linkages for everything. We can use our agricultural sector to transform our economy. And within 10 years, we should be able to see that there must be a deliberate approach to making it happen. We need to overhaul our institutions, for example, like the agri sector. You know, the agri sector should be up and doing. Okay, only supervising farmers and agribusiness is not enough. I think I want to make this call that the agri ministry should also engage in production. And if they do that, they will feel what farmers are feeling. And I think that they will be able to also understand sometimes the calls that farmers make to them. Because if you are just supervising us, you are not there, you are just supervising us, you are just leading us and managing us. Sometimes what we feel, we may not feel it. So that Greek ministry should be up and doing. They need to be strong on the ground. They need to increase their their membership. They need to employ more extension officers. They need to provide logistical support to them. Now, this I want to make this call that the next thing that will help us to be able to go to do this Ghana Beyond Aid is that we need to have a mindset change and an attitudinal change. Our mindset to always depend on foreign goods must change from now. And I think that if we build that kind of attitude, and we need to see leadership show example, that we eat what we are growing, we wear what we are sowing, there are a lot of young people who are creating shoes, who are doing shoe factories and everything. The president must wear Ghanaian shoes, you know, to showcase to everyone that Ghana Beyond Aid is possible. And as we do that, I think that gradually we'll get there.
Grateful that you could join us, Reverend Evans Tremens. I see you at Great Impact Ghana. And earlier we had Samson Asaki
Awingo-Bit with the Exporters and Importers Association, and also Dr. Joseph Obeng of Guta. But I just wanted to wrap with these comments, Bernice, and I just want you to listen to what we've been saying, and Rev as well. As we conclude the conversation, you see, when the Osajifo Kwame Nkrumah started talking about Africa being independent, he started from home by liberating us. So let's see what we've been saying. 3 years ago, at the 61st Independence Day celebration, this is what our president said about a Ghana Beyond Aid. Pay attention. It is time to pursue a path to prosperity and self-respect for our nation. A Ghana Beyond Aid is a prosperous and self-confident Ghana that is in charge of her economic destiny. A transformed Ghana that is prosperous enough to be beyond needing aid, and that engages competitively with the rest of the world through trade and investment. Though very ambitious, the Ghana Beyond Aid vision is achievable. Other nations with even fewer resources have done it. However, we are not going to achieve the vision of a Ghana Beyond Aid by just talking about it. We have to do something about it. It's the doing part that we are left with. Hopefully, we can get there.
Interesting way to conclude our conversation.